Okay, let me try this one more time. Welcome, you guys, or welcome back if you've been on my channel before. I have tried to start this video like 2 other times now, and unfortunately, I bought a messed up phone holder, thing that you stick on the windshield, hold your phone. Yeah, what do you expect though for $5? I was trying to go the cheap route. Didn't want to spend a whole lot on it, and I know better than that. I've had them before. But I was in Five and Below, and I thought, hey, why not? Let me give it a try for $5. And it's not a bad little phone holder, but a piece is already broken off of it, and the damn phone keeps falling out of it as I drive. Sometimes I do DoorDash, and I really need the phone to be secure. And so what I did was pop the case off, this big bulky case, and because, yeah, that helps a lot. I've actually put it back in and tightened the clamps down, and I think it'll hold it at least for a little while. We'll see. So hopefully it won't fall out on me again because it's starting to piss me off. How is everyone? I hope everybody's doing okay. And I just wanted to jump on and chit chat with you guys a little bit. I posted an update video not long ago, and I mentioned, or maybe I didn't, that I'm just going to film random videos for a while. There for a while, I was doing a lot of editing, putting lots and lots and lots of time and hours and work into my videos. And, I enjoy that process. That's creative fun to me. I love putting my heart and soul into that kind of thing. I'm one of those people that has to have stuff like that in my life. That's, side projects, creative projects. And then I ended up getting monetized, and that's nice. But, I started to kind of just get antsy and anxious and carried away with my expectations. And, I was in a really bad financial position in life and trying my best to get my life back together. And it was just taking, a lot of time and energy. And YouTube isn't something that is going to pay your bills immediately. That's just not going to happen. It's like you really have to just continue working and doing what you do to take care of your life and responsibilities, and do YouTube because you love it, because it's makes you feel purposeful, or it's a side project or passion, something you enjoy. And you really have to kind of come from that angle with it for, as long as it takes, and then, just have faith and belief in yourself that your channel will continue to grow and maybe lead to other things, other opportunities. You never know. So that's what that's what I'm kind of doing going forward. Don't get me wrong, I will do videos again where there's lots of fun editing and things added to make it more interesting for the viewer and fun for me to do. I love adding pictures and music, and all that stuff is great fun, and creating presentations. But, as it stands, I want to be able to pop on and get up some content, talk about some things on my mind, some things that are moving to me, or that I think you guys might find food for thought or interesting when I have time to do it. And now, since I have another vehicle, thank God, I have the quiet, private space to actually do that again. For almost 2 years, it was almost impossible for me to find a way to film, because I'm cooped up in a tiny place with my mom and yada, yada. And it just, wasn't as good as having a private space to do it in. So now I can kind of pop on when I'm on my way places and, get some random content up, talk to you guys about some things. So that's just how I'm going to do it, to keep myself from, we get attached to specific outcomes in life. Oh, I just have to do this, and it has to be just perfect. And, I've got to earn this amount of money from it, and I got to make this happen, and I got to make that. And it can really be depressing. It can really turn out to be a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure. Whereas sometimes if we just relax and surrender to the process a little bit, surrender so much trying to control every little moment and, force things with that type of energy, I have found from my own personal experience, for me, It works better that way. It absolutely works better that way. So that's kind of what I'm doing, y'all. I'm just, popping on, talking about random things here and there. And I started watching the Selena series several years back when it first came out. Y'all remember that? When it hit Netflix, I think it was was it middle 2020, spring 2020 during the pandemic, or was it 2021? Either way, I started it when it first came out. God, that's been damn near 4 years ago. And I watched up to a certain point, and I remember I ran out of episodes. And so I know it's back on Netflix now. In the last year, they finished up. It's probably been on there for a long while. But I just started, really in the last year. I was going through hell the year before that. I wasn't paying attention to anything. But anyway, I noticed that they have finished it up with an entire part 2. Or season 2. And for the life of me, I couldn't remember which episode I left off on. And so I'm kind of going back and rewatching, throughout some of the series. And I'm going to watch up until the end. And I am a massive Selena fan. I'm referring to Selena Quintanilla Perez, the Tejano Mexican-American singer who was killed by her fan club manager back in 1995 at only 23 years of age. I've been wanting to get some content up about Selena and talk about her life, and just a beautiful young lady. And I think I've posted maybe a couple of shorts with pictures of Selena. And at one point I was kind of comparing Yolanda Saldivar, the woman who took her life, and Chris Watts. As far as covert narcissism goes, the personality types, I personally feel like those two personality types are similar. Passive aggressive, manipulative, snake-like, oh, so desperate to be friends with you. Oh, so goody two-shoes, and just, oh, I can help you, and, all that mouth and all that show off, but none of it's true. None of it do they have the actual ability to do, and it would turn out that there's some screws loose in there. And, I hate to say it like that because I'm a person who's very supportive of people with mental illness, people with addictions, people with childhood traumas, because I am one myself. And I'm surrounded by people like that in my family. I came up like that. I've always had a big heart and a lot of compassion for people like that. But when you cross those lines, okay, like Yolanda and Chris did, they committed the ultimate crimes, okay, against their own flesh and blood. Well, Chris against his own flesh and blood, wife, children, and Yolanda against this innocent, beautiful young woman who had her whole life ahead of her, who never did anything wrong to her. Just crimes against humanity in general, And so, I realized that it's very likely that both of those people had issues, trauma in their past, some kind of situation unhealed in them. But I'm sorry that they grew up not getting the guidance, the therapy, the help, the direction that they needed, and committed the violent, awful acts that they committed. Sorry, but once people cross those lines, I don't have a lot of empathy and time for that, a lot of pity for those kind of people. I'm sorry, mental illness is hell, but and some of those people, it's a tricky thing to break down because they know full well what they're doing. They are fully conscious of what they're doing and even premeditated sometimes, like in the Watts case. So it's hard for us to understand without a lot of training and a lot of knowledge. It's really hard for us to understand, okay, well, were they mentally ill? Did they have something wrong? I said screws loose. Well, hey, I'm going to talk how I talk. Okay, after you commit a crime like Watts did, like I say, I don't have a whole lot of damn pity for you. Sorry, it is what it is. There's kind of a fine line there, I think. And by no means am I a doctor or a professional or anything like that. But I've been around this kind of thing all of my life. People with mental illness, people with personality disorders, people with addictions. I've been very, very close to it all of my life. And I think there's a fine line there where they are fully conscious of what they're doing in the moment, and they can even, premeditate and whatnot, but the level that their brain is developed to, what I mean by there's some screws, there's something going on there. A lot of times with people like that, there is a part of their brain that has not fully developed, that has not fully matured. And they don't process information like everyone else. The cutoff points, the self-discipline, the impulsivity, the impulsive, even irrational thinking, paranoia sometimes, the things that go through their mind that they won't let anybody else know. They'll just sit there and they learn to lie, to cover things up. They learn to memorize things. They learn to memorize what people want to hear. But a great deal of the time, there is something very, very off about people like that, very disturbed, and it's something that they've never told anyone, never gotten any help for, and then people will let them in their life because they're very good at acting just like everyone else. What's the word? Assimilating. They're very good at memorizing what people want to hear, what gets praised, what people are fond of, what is socially acceptable. They're very good at covering up. A lot of times, they also know something's wrong with them. They grow up feeling and knowing something. And a lot of it starts in their childhood, because I've been so close to people like this, man. My partner had a lot of these kinds of issues. I had a lot of fucking issues growing up. And so I can actually talk pretty deeply on some of these types of issues. And a lot of people like that grew up a certain way, were treated a certain way by the parents, whatever what have you happened to them, and or born, with certain predispositions for certain disorders, and then shit happens to them and it fucks their head up. It literally twists their mind, and they go through life not getting any help for that, thinking a certain way, and they grow up feeling very odd inside, like the odd man out, like the oddball, like something's wrong with me, and they don't ever feel quite right about themselves, and, because they're not getting the therapy, the guidance, the nurturing, the love, all the shit at home that they need. A lot of times they'll go through, something occurred in their past, and they do not get to work that shit through, and there is a fucking loose wire there. I mean, just to put it really down and simple and crude, for lack of better words right now, it's just how it is. And they go through life like that. And, but yeah, they're very good at getting into your life, convincing you that they're great people, that they are your best friend. They're oh so helpful at first. There are warning signs, of course, that generally, unfortunately, only after having to go through a hurtful or tragic experience with some of these types of people do we learn this stuff. But there are red flags, there are warning signs to watch for with those kinds of people. But yeah, Yolanda Saldivar, Chris Watts, and that whole type, the passive aggressiveness, the snake-like behavior, and carrying around these deep-rooted psychological problems, never really feeling right about themselves, low self-esteem, and then they are also a lot of times the types to play victim and to use their trauma not to get better, not to get help and get better, but to use their traumas to turn them into sob stories, to continually victimize themselves, and to continually get pity from whoever's lives they get into. and just suck and drain energy off others, okay? It's a nightmare. I've been around people like that before, and so it can be tricky understanding people like that, because yes, they know what they're doing a lot of the time. Absolutely. They're not babies. They're not incompetent. They weren't knocked out. They were conscious, like Chris Watts planned it. It was premeditated. But at the same time, they also aren't operating on all the cylinders that everybody else is. A person who is healthy in the mind, who has a healthy level of emotional intelligence and coping skills, and who, for God's sake, would never even think twice because they're not happy in their marriage, or whatever the hell's going on, wouldn't even think twice, it would never cross their mind to wipe out their entire family. Or in the case of Yolanda and Selena, it would never cross a healthy minded person. It never crossed their mind to, oh my God, I've been caught. I've done Selena wrong, and I've stolen money, and I'm going to get in big trouble. There's no way I can apologize. There's no way I can communicate. There's no way I could offer to repay this. Instead of thinking about it like a rational, mature human being who has been caught. You fucked up. Well, we all have, haven't we? I know I have. You've been caught, you fucked up, and you did something awful to somebody that, well, I can't say she really loved Selena and admired and respected her. She was obsessed with her. She wanted to be her. She wanted to own her, control her. She wanted to be Selena's pet, and behind Selena's back, control everything and push people around. And I'm Selena's right hand, and she was a nut job, okay? She was, out there. She didn't really love, care, and respect Selena and Selena's well-being and her goals in life and all the things she was trying to accomplish. And Selena's family, she didn't really give two shits about them. She cared about Yolanda Saldivar. She wanted to get clout and money, and that's what she cared about. So but instead of looking at the situation like a healthy-minded individual would, okay, for some reason, I have just fucked over my best friend. I have embezzled this money. I was desperate. I can honestly say that I have had times in my past where I have done shit that I am not proud of, where I can't even explain where my head was at the time, where my emotional and mental maturity level was at the time. What I evolved throughout life. We all continue to grow as human beings, right? Okay, so some people can relate to that. But a healthy-minded individual who wants to grow can admit their mistakes, even if it was a terrible thing that you did to someone you love. Nobody in their right mind thinks like Chris Watts and Yolanda Saldivar. Oh shit, I've been caught. Or, oh shit, I'm backed into a corner. I'm cheating, and I want to do this, this, and that, and I'm going to get caught sooner or later. And I don't know how to communicate these things and handle these things. Same thing with Yolanda Saldivar. Oh, I've been caught. Oh God, I'm so ashamed. Toxic shame, man. People trying to cover and avoid feeling shame. Some of these covert narcissistic types will go off the deep end trying to avoid feeling shame, trying to avoid being fingered and pointed out and called out, and and they will take it to these god-awful extremes of all kinds, just trying to protect themselves and save face. I know, it is crazy. It's absurd. Just like Chris Watts thought he was going to walk off into the sunset, being perceived by the public as the sweet, caring, wonderful father, grieving father and husband, and run off into the fucking sunset with his tramp and all the money from the sale of the house, and just do it just like that. That's what he thought he was going to do. And Saldivar, instead of talking to Selena and just being like, okay, Okay, what can I say? I'm ashamed. I'm deeply ashamed. Yes, I've done this. I'll provide the records for you when I can find them. I have a problem and I want help, and I don't expect you to ever trust me again. It is what it is. And if you care about that relationship, then you will try to make up for it. You will try to make amends, and you will go through them not trusting you for a while. You'll do whatever it takes to make it right, And instead of her talking to Selena and Selena's family and facing the shame for the crime that she had already committed against them, the theft of the money and the embezzlement of the money, instead, she makes this fucking irrational thinking that they have when they're being shamed. A lot of it has to do with shame. It's almost like they start to regress back to, in those moments, it's almost like they start to regress back into the age of a 5-year-old. I don't know what it is or why it happens, but I was really close to someone who had similar characteristics. He would do similar things when called out or confronted, or he thought that he was going to be shamed, even though he was the one doing the heinous shit that would cause shame to come upon him. His emotional maturity level wasn't enough that he could rationally process all of that in a mature and healthy way, and then therefore communicate these things out, take accountability, go through the process of whatever, what have you. He just couldn't do it. And therefore he would get himself in more and more spider webs, spin more webs and more hot water and more lies and more manipulation, and go do, crazy, careless acts and impulsive acts and all of that just to avoid feeling shame, to avoid being pointed out and being shamed, But sometimes we have to face just enough shame to get better, okay? And some people cannot do it. So Yolanda Saldivar, Chris Watts, yeah, that's what a healthy-minded person would have done. But instead, she decides to freak out like some weirdo and shoot Selena. Don't know really where her head was at that time, but I know she was obsessed with Selena. And I know that she was also thinking, okay, if you're going to kick me out of your life, Saldivar was completely and totally codependent on Selena for her mental, emotional survival and well-being. That is why codependency is horrible. It's toxic. Get a life. Get your own way of feeling good about yourself. Get your own life. That's fine to work for somebody else, admire somebody else, respect them, love them. But Yolanda was the type that was completely obsessed. She was completely living her life to get clout through Selena, to get money through Selena, to be near Selena, she was just completely freaking obsessed with that, and she had no life for Yolanda Saldivar. She couldn't get the self-esteem and the confidence to say, hey, I'm friends with this great woman, this young lady that I'm privileged to be friends with, and I'm in her inner circle, and it's beautiful, and I appreciate that, and I'm grateful to have this fan club job. I am grateful that she trusts me with these responsibilities. This is a great life. But now I also need to make an identity for Yolanda Saldivar. I have to do, use my gifts and what I'm absolutely the best at. And, when you start losing your fucking self in another human being, and that's the only damn reason you get up in the morning and you don't even know who you are, like, that's just scary. It's crazy and it's dangerous. And so, I think like I say, I'm a massive Selena fan. I got into her in my late teens, very early 20s. I first heard her, the first song she released in English on the radio back in 95. And I was, like I say, only 17 or 18. But it wasn't until a couple years later, okay? It wasn't until the movie came out that I actually learned of the tragedy of Selena and a lot more about her. And after the movie, I slung that aside. It was all about the books everything I could get my hands on about Selena, all of her music. My kids are pushing 30 now, my older one, they're in their late 20s. I had all her music. I had them singing Como la Flor in their diapers. Um, I've always, since I was a little girl, I don't think I have any Hispanic people in my family or Mexican people, but I was born onto this earth with some kind of deep, passionate love. I mean, deep, sentimental, passionate love and respect for their culture, for their people, for their music, everything. I've always been that way since I was a little girl. I wanted to take Spanish growing up, and I didn't get to in school, so I did it when I went back to college. But yeah, and so it was a beautiful thing when I fell upon Selena. She inspired me in so many ways, like the real Selena, listening to her music and her voice and, learning all these things about her life. And, it actually got me, not only was I interested in Spanish growing up in learning the language, but I also wrote songs and I sang and I was very creative and I loved fashion. And she re-inspired me in my early 20s. I had started to have my children at 20 and 21, and I had put all the creativity away for a while. And when she came along, she re-inspired me to start singing again, to start writing again, to get into the studio. And I did those things. I recorded songs. I did a lot of things, and I just have always been a major fan of her and her music, her voice, the soul that was coming through this young 20-something, just unbelievable, okay? Just such a beautiful person. And I don't know, as far as the thing with Yolanda, so I got to watching the show. I've been watching it again recently. And it just kills me every time. It's almost unbearable. And I don't, just thinking of this young lady with her whole life ahead of her, how much Selena accomplished before the age of 23. It's just unreal, but that's kind of how she grew up, like the Jackson family. She grew up like born for this, molded and guided, and she grew up performing and in that life, and once upon a time I'm very fond of Sloan Bella. People who watch my channel know that I talk about her on occasion. She is an astrologer, psychic medium. Sloan has a tough story, a tough background, and I really like her. I really like her vibe. I like her no-nonsense attitude. She just gives it to you straight, and she also reads the energy, reads people's energy, living and deceased, okay? She has a lot of those videos on her channel. She did one on Selena Perez. It's been about 3 years since I have listened to it, but I remember some of the things she talked about in that video. And she talked about how, now, some people may take this the wrong way. A lot of people don't like spiritual stuff. It makes them feel offended or like you're trying to disrespect these people or whatnot. It's none of that. None of that is going on here. That is not what I'm trying to do. And if it's not for you, politely with respect, just don't watch. Just, go on, leave the channel. But she read the energy of Selena, and she got to talking about how in this particular life, I love Sloan's videos, man. It just puts all this stuff into perspective for you about our lifetimes and why things are so urgent to some people. But after Sloan read her energy, and I listened to that video, it made so much sense that Selena, in the last couple of years of her life, was so urgently wanting to do things, and you see that in the film too, in the little series. you see these, you know, which I know they can take creative liberties and add things here and there, but you see that, you know, Selena, and in when people tell her life stories, and in the movie it was like that. But Selena urgently wanted to get married. You know, there were things that she felt urgency to go ahead and do, like her boutique. Her father wanted her to put that off a while, you know, like she was getting swamped with all this business. That's why they brought Yolanda in to help out and trusted her. God, I can't imagine what Selena's parents carried, you know, and still carried to this day, what her family feels. But yeah, they brought Yolanda in to help out. And, you know, Abraham, her father, thought that she was taking on too much. And Selena, you know, I just picked up that energy from her that she, somewhere in her soul, it's like she didn't know it consciously. And sadly, oh my God, you know, we know. But somewhere in her soul knew that she wasn't going to be here long. And that she wanted to make her mark and make it beautiful as quickly as she possibly could, with her voice, her music, her clothing, and everything that she loved and was passionate about. She wanted to hurry up and marry the man she had fallen in love with. She didn't want to wait and put it off, you know. And I just think about her parents, you know, and how there's no way we could know. You know, there's no way we can know when any of us is going to leave this planet, when something's going to happen. There's no way to know that. And of course, they just wanted to look out for their daughter. They wanted her to have all the opportunities and to find herself before she, you know, got into a marriage or took on too much business. They really just, you know, of course, protecting their young daughter, because in your 20s, you're usually still pretty immature. I know I was. I mean, in a lot of ways, I was very mature because I grew up rough. I grew up running the streets. I grew up running away from home. I grew up with a lot on my back that I really shouldn't have been exposed to from age 12 on. I mean, really from the time I was born on up, but I started running away at 12. So in many ways, I was grown way before my time. And I had a lot of knowledge and smarts that I shouldn't even had at that age. But in other areas, I wasn't as well developed. My emotional maturity, my decision making. You know, in your 20s, you can still be very rash and impulsive, and, you know, you just don't think the way you do when you're older and more mature. And so, you know, naturally, they just wanted to protect her until she had a few more years on her. And it's not that they wanted to hold their daughter back. It's not that they wanted her to be unhappy. But, you know, as a parent myself, I can only imagine what they felt after she passed, you know, and had to think about and, you know, giving her some resistance, you know, like Abraham getting angry when she got married and all that happened with, you know, putting Chris out and, you know, trying to come in between them and stop the marriage for a while. And all of those things that sometimes loving parents do, you know, I can only imagine what they had to go through and what they thought about after what happened to Selena, as far as looking back on it, like, okay, had we known this, we would have wanted her to live even more and enjoy every single moment of every single day and experience all the things that she could possibly experience. You know, I don't know. I just think about stuff like this, guys. I'm just weird like that. And I don't know, watching the show again is bringing up all those emotions for me. It's been, you know, like I say, going on 25 some odd years or more that I have loved Selena and been very into her and her music and her story. And I would love to visit Corpus Christi one day. I would love to visit her boutiques and the memorial to Selena. So anyway, well, I'll probably make a part 2 to this. You know, maybe and follow. I definitely will make more videos about Selena. I'd like to get up, like I did with Gia Karanji, I would like to get up a beautiful presentation of just photographs of Selena and a memorial and celebration of her beauty and her life and her inspiration. I don't know, maybe just a picture tribute, and maybe I'll do another video discussing certain things from her life with some pictures, who knows. So I'll definitely do that. I'll try to follow up on this one because I've got to be somewhere right now, and I definitely feel like there's more to discuss. You know, as far as Yolanda Saldivar coming into this family's life and like a snake, and how she turned on them, and instead of rationalizing and taking accountability in a split second, she decides to completely wipe out a human life without a second thought. You know, so there's more to be discussed here. And, you know, I just think it's amazing. I think, and Sloan Bella, I didn't finish talking about her and what she, you know, she said different things about this incarnation for Selena. And she basically said kind of what I was saying a minute ago, that it got really complex, the story, the energy that Sloan read about how this energy that took her out had followed her for several lifetimes. Now, I know some people are going to get pissy about this kind of talk, and that's okay if you are. My channel's not for you, because my channel is going to increasingly go this direction in the future, talking about energy and energetic alignment and timelines and spiritual stuff and quantum this and out-of-body experiences and astrology and you name it, I'm into it. So, but Sloan discussed a lot of these things, how that fucking dark energy that finally caught up to Selena, that took her life. And I'm not saying Saldivar isn't responsible and that she didn't consciously know what she was doing. She did, and she is responsible. But there is also a dark ass energy that surrounds people like that, that gets in them and around them. And depending on what their mindset is like, they can be led by that energy. You know, we have choices on what kind of energy we want to have on us, whether we want to, you know, be aware and have a good energy, a kind, empathic, compassionate, loving, stable, well-balanced energy. That's the more and more aware we are of, self-aware, the more and more that type of thing is going to be under control. And, you know, we're going to think about our actions and how we make others feel and all that. Or we can be oblivious to it all and decide to say, fuck it, and get all mired down in our own problems and our own bitterness and anger and trauma, and not seek the help we need and not seek the guidance we need and not be open for change, not be desiring for growth. And we can be taken over by other energies, darker, much darker energies and energetic attachments and shit like that. And that's just what it is. And I have felt that in my own damn life. I have been through those energetic wars before. I have felt it all over me before, all surrounding me, in people, on people around me. And I've had to fight for my life before energetically. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have to have my tools right, my mind right. And, you know, especially when I become hormonal, there are certain times in my life where I become very vulnerable, more susceptible or open to, when people are fragile, when they're vulnerable, when they've been traumatized, or when they are addicted, or that is ripe for the pickings. Okay. That is when those dark ass energies can really take you down through there. And it's a battle. It's like a war of the mind and a war of the soul to get it, you know. And once you get so far down in there, it's like a fucking vortex, you know. And some people become completely led by all of that. They already have mental issues anyway that haven't been attended to. They already, you know, but that can happen. And so Yolanda talked about this energy had followed Selena from lifetime to lifetime. So in this particular lifetime, when she was born in, she had to be cloaked for a while, protected, so that this energy couldn't find her, so that it couldn't move through whoever it needed to move through. And I don't know, that's just how Sloan explained it. She said when Selena was first born into this incarnation, she was cloaked. It didn't know, So I don't know. I think she explained that she was a singer in the past, in her past lifetimes. And that this battle, this energy war, these people after her, that energy had been in different people in those past lives and killed her every time. And it had followed her into this life, and she only had a certain amount of time to come in and accomplish what she was here to accomplish. I think the singing, the career had gotten interrupted in her last lifetime as well. And she had been taken out, or something happened. And I would have to go back and listen. But if you're interested, I highly recommend Sloan Bella's channel, the energy reading on Selena Quintanilla Perez. And you'll hear everything. It's unbelievable to me at the same time, but personally, that kind of thing resonates with me. I feel that kind of thing, that personally, that kind of shit makes sense to me. I feel like something followed me into this lifetime as well. Because basically from the moment I pulled my first breath, I felt I didn't have a damn chance. It was all over me. Working through, I love my parents. I don't carry hatred towards them. My father is deceased, and I don't carry hatred. There were a lot of good qualities about him, and, my mother's still living, but I have major, major father and mother issues, and I always have. The abuse that was inflicted on me from my very first memories that violated my body, violated my mind, the violation of all kinds, twistedness, manipulation, high narcissism in the parents, addiction, personality disorders, just not thinking along the lines of nurturing and caring for children and how the children feel, and just one big clusterfuck of dysfunction and trauma. And, but my father could be quite loving and nurturing at the same time, almost like a mother, but at the same time, horrifically violent and scary and from out of nowhere. And just, and the mother very withdrawn, and she wasn't nearly as nurturing as the father. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to believe what I came from. But I've always been determined to work through it. I've always been determined to overcome those issues, and God knows where I would be if I didn't have the blessing of a therapist back then. Got court ordered into therapy, and I was put in different treatment facilities and at least exposed to that kind of thing, so that when I got older, I went looking for it. I knew to reach out. I knew to study. I knew to, I've always been really determined to overcome that kind of thing. So similarly, I'm just saying what Sloan said about Selena's life and how that energy followed her, it resonates with me as damn well believable, because I too have always kind of felt like that ever since I was born into this life. It was moving through, my father was almost like a dictator, completely controlling, smothering, from what I wore to how I spoke to even my thoughts. Like, I was even scared to think certain thoughts. It was just insanity. And, when you're born into a situation like that in your early life, and statistically, a lot of people don't make it. Statistically, people end up in prison, drug addicted, strung out, dead. Statistically, people who grew up like I grew up don't do very well. And so, yeah, I didn't really feel like I had a fighting chance. The programming, the conditioning, all the shit that was going on, all of my years growing up, and then the paths that I took as a adolescent, and but luckily, like I said, God bless, I've had guardian angels mentors, and beautiful people enter my life ever since I was very young to snatch me up and give me that guidance I needed, the teaching I needed, the healing I needed. But a big part of it was just inside of me. I wanted to live it. I wanted to overcome it. I wanted to be different. So, and I still struggle with shit. But anyway, back to Selena. I'm just telling you why that resonates with me. Why I really like Sloan so much, and the things that she says resonate with me. So I'm going to go back and listen to her reading on Selena again tonight. And I will probably follow up with a part 2 of this, and we'll continue a little bit more discussion about the life of Selena Perez and how she lived, and what she accomplished at such a young age. My God, I mean, that is just remarkable. It is so much to be proud of. And the maturity in her soul. She didn't really act like a young 20s. I know 20-somethings that are still, whatever. Like I say, I was very grown at that age. I had already had both of my children at that age. I was domestic. I was a housewife. Now, I had that part down, certain maturity. But there was some shit I was still a baby in the mind on. And as far as being out conquering the world like that, it's unimaginable that someone before 23 years of age was completely, all over the Mexican, awards and music, and very, very popular in that regard, and with those people and that culture, and then just about to cross over into English language and be able to put out an album in English language and cross over into the pop scene in English language. And not only that, but releasing a clothing line that she designs. Just brilliant. The beautiful creativity in that girl. I just love her so much. And, I love creative people because I'm a creative person. And I was like that when I was a girl. Dreams were all I had, though, because of what I was born into and how controlled and stifled and smothered I was. I dreamed and daydreamed and made plans. And, because of the life I was living, I was also born very creative, and I developed into being even more creative. I loved all of those things too. Fashion and drawing, fashion illustration and music and singing and writing. And I always have. Anything, cooking, decorating. It's like life to me. It's like oxygen to me, because those were the things I turned to in my darkest days, but that's why I love, looking at people like that. And it's just a beautiful thing to me to see that on a young woman or a young man, and to have that ripped right out from under her, those amazing accomplishments and the love that she had for her family, and newly married and wanting to have her own family. And God knows where Selena would have gone had she lived. God knows how many people she would have inspired. She had one of the kindest hearts. You could just tell it on her energy. You could just read it on her energy. She wasn't pretentious. She was drop dead freaking gorgeous, had it going on. She didn't need to be pretentious. She was cool. She did what she did. But just an amazing, amazing talent. And something about her, not only just the accomplishments and the things she was doing and the love she had for people and her family and her fans, but something about her energy. Did anybody else feel that way? When watching her on interviews, watching her move on stage?